Thank you for staying glued to QTV. Time now for the news. The headlines. Foot and mouth disease has spread to 3 new districts, forcing government to ban the movement of livestock from the affected areas. Housing and Infrastructure Development Minister Ronald Chitotela will this Thursday know his fate, whether or not he has a case to answer in his corruption case. And the National Biosafety Authority has granted 4 companies permits to import products that may contain genetically modified organisms. And now is the news in detail. Foot and mouth disease, which broke out in Chisamba and the Chiwambo districts, has spread to Chilanga, Kabwe and Kapirimposhi districts. Government has since banned the movement of live cattle, pigs, goats and sheep and their products into and out of the affected districts within a radius of 15 kilometers from the affected farms. Livestock Minister Kampamba Mulenga Chewe has also banned the sale of raw milk within a radius of 15 kilometers from the affected areas. In a statement made available to Q News, Mrs. Chewe says the disease was detected at Sunrise Farm in Chilanga, which is located along Mumbwa Road, whereas in Kapirimposhi, the disease was detected in Luanshimba veterinary camp at Paul's Windies Farm and Osborne Kalonga's farm, both located off Great North Road near Manyumbi Tollgate, while in Kabwe it has been detected in Munga West veterinary camp. Mrs. Chewe says the ministry has since been forced to put the district under quarantine. She says the ministry has also intensified surveillance and inspections of farms to ascertain the presence or absence of the disease and set up a biosecurity checkpoint at strategic points. Mrs. Chewe says the measures are in pursuant to Animal Health Act number 27 of 2010 of the laws of Zambia and is intended to guard against further spread of the disease to other areas of the country. She has since warned that it is an offense to move cattle, pigs, goats, sheep and their products into and out of Chilanga, Kabwe and Kapirimposhi districts within the 15 kilometers radius of the affected farms. The Livestock Minister has reaffirmed the government's commitment to ensuring that the foot and mouth disease outbreak is contained. Housing and Infrastructure Development Minister Ronald Chitotela will know his fate on Thursday, 11th July 2019, whether or not he has a case to answer in the matter he is charged with corruption. This is in a matter in which Mr. Chitotela and 3 others are facing 4 counts of concealing and being in possession of property suspected to be proceeds of crime. The matter was scheduled for ruling this morning, but Lusaka Magistrate David Simusamba, who is presiding over the case, could not render his ruling as it was not yet ready. Facts before the court are that Mr. Chitotela, Gregory Chibanga and Brute Holdings Limited, between 3rd July 2016 and October 30th, 2018 in Lusaka, concealed plot number 148 of Farm 50A, situated in Makeni, disguised in the names of Diris Mukange, property reasonably suspected to be proceeds of crime. The trial is also alleged to have been between the same dates concealed part of subdivision A, lot 2218, Block M, situated in Ibex Hill, Lusaka, disguised in the names of Diris Mukange, property reasonably suspected to be proceeds of crime. The other accusation is that Diris Mukange, between the same dates, jointly and whilst acting together with other unknown people, possessed lot number 148 of Farmer 50A, situated in Makeni in Lusaka, property reasonably suspected to be proceeds of crime. If the court finds merit in the arguments made by the state, Mr. Chitotela is likely to be placed on his defense or be set free if the court establishes otherwise. The Law Association of Zambia, LAZ, says there is no justification for bringing back deputy ministers in government. LAZ President Eddie Muitwa notes that the removal of the position of deputy minister from the constitution is beneficial to the country. He contends that the decision to bring back deputy ministers must therefore have a clear justification. Mr. Muitwa has told Q News that so far there is no justification to bring back deputy ministers.
It is accurate or not, it's difficult to say because we do not have the figures that were used to justify. So it is something that we will hopefully be given another opportunity to interrogate when the Constitution Amendment Bill comes out in the public and for stakeholders to input. And naturally, our expectation is that having removed that position, in 2016 when the Constitution was amended. The framers of the Constitution must have analyzed the position, looked at the benefits of having deputy ministers and also the demerits. And for that position to be reinstated, it can only be done surely with justification. We have not seen the evidence to justify that we still need deputy ministers.
The National Biosafety Authority, NBA, has granted 4 companies new permits to import products that may contain genetically modified organisms, GMOs. NBA Chairperson Dr. Paul Zambezi says the permits have been granted to Gatbro Distributors, Pick and Pay, Southern National Import and Export Limited, and Choppies. Dr. Zambezi says this follows the decision of the NBA board during its meeting held on the 5th of July 2019 in Lusaka. In May 2019, the Scientific Advisory Committee of the NBA recommended to the board the issuance of the permits after a risk assessment was conducted on the products that may contain GMOs and were found to be safe for human consumption. Among the products which Gatbro intends to import include Bokomo Otis, Bokomo Pro Neutral, Instant Porridge, Bokomo Cornflakes, Bisto and Kino soups. Pick and Pay, on the other hand, intends to bring 72 different varieties of food and feed. These include brands of bobtail dog feed and no-name popped rice, Kino soups, S instant porridge, Kellogg's cornflakes, Imana soya and Imana gravy roast chicken flavor, among other products. Dr. Zambezi says Southern National Import and Export Limited will import various premixes including bread mix, soft raw mix and Brackel's 15% soft mix, among others, while Choppies will import various flavors of S porridge. He has reiterated that the food safety is very important and that the authority cannot allow any food or feed which is not safe for human consumption nor for use as animal feed to be on the market. This is contained in a statement made available to Q News by NBA Communications Officer Sandra Lombe. Government has formally begun the process of procuring services to monitor and track tankers used to transport petroleum products into and within the country. Energy Minister Matthew Nkua has disclosed that his ministry is speaking to would-be suppliers and will soon float a tender for the sought services. Mr. Nkua has told QTV News that the measure is aimed at curbing the smuggling of fuel into the country, will however take long to be fully operationalized. He says this is because government bureaucracy will have to be followed.
It is a very real situation, definitely, and it's going to happen. The ministry is very busy right now. We're talking to the would-be suppliers and so on, and very soon we'll be tendering out. We'll push out a tender so that people can tender and be able to. We'll be able to pick the best tender that can meet what we are looking for, what we are aspiring. So it is a process. It will take quite a bit of time. You know, government, we've got bureaucracy and systems and so on that we must follow. So we'll follow the system and make sure that we tender it out. Definitely, that is the way we are going. We're not going to go back on that one.
Ministry of Health Permanent Secretary for Technical Services, Dr. Kennedy Malama, says over 160,000 people living with HIV have so far been put on the new dolutegravir, DHD antiretroviral drug, which was introduced last year. Dr. Malama says the new drug is being prioritized for those that are getting on medication for the first time as means of ensuring that more people are put on treatment. He says Zambia is one of the countries on course in attaining epidemic control and that in so doing, new and improved drugs are being introduced. Dr. Malama says out of the 1.2 million people living with HIV in the country, over 1 million are on treatment, a situation which demonstrates government's high impact interventions. The Ministry of Health last year introduced Gitrovenia, which is believed to be more tolerable with fewer side effects.
Currently, in terms of the 90, Zambia, we are at 83%, 93%, and 89%. So you can see that we are on course. Out of the total number of 1.2 million people living with HIV in Zambia, 1 million now are on treatment. One of the things we've done is to introduce to the regimen of treatment for ARVs, another cocktail or another combination of drugs. And this is, we call it TLOD. TLOD basically means tenofovir, lamivudine, and dolutegravir, a new combination. We are replacing efavirenz with dolutegravir. That's why it's TLD. So far as Zambia, we started last year. At the close of last year, we had about 60,000 Zambians on TLD. As we are speaking now, we have 160,000 Zambians who are on TLD, the new formulation. The clarion call to our people is that those who are on the older regimen and they are doing well, there's no need to rush to be changed to the new drug. So for now, priority are those who are being commenced on treatment, and then in the women of reproductive age, we are providing adequate counseling so that appropriate choices are made. Currently,
World Health Organization WHO Country Director Nathan Bataitia has called for cooperation among partners in the health sector towards the elimination of malaria in Zambia. Dr. Batiata has observed that even though Zambia has made strides towards malaria elimination, as evidenced by the interventions the government has put in place, more needs to be done. He has noted that Zambia has been able to scale up interventions such as increasing access to treated insecticide mosquito nets through a massive distribution campaign. Speaking to Q News, Dr. Batiata has cited other interventions as early as diagnosis and the treatment of people found with malaria in the health centers across the country. He has stressed the need for efforts by various partners in the health sector to be well coordinated in order to meet the elimination of malaria target by 2020.
But I can say anecdotally that we are doing okay. We have been able to scale up interventions like increasing access to insecticide-treated nets in the communities through the mass distribution campaigns. IRS, so in the residual spraying, is being done across the country. We ensure that those who fall sick are provided with the necessary diagnosis, both at the community and at the health facility, and then are treated appropriately when that happens. And the other key interventions is to make sure that the work done by all the partners with government is coordinated, so there is a strong malaria elimination center which brings everybody together to make sure that we are all pulling in the same direction.
The opposition UPND says the Food Reserve Agency's price of 110 kwacha for a 50-kilogram bag of maize is not only a complete distortion of maize market dynamics, but is also likely to affect the national food security. UPND Chairperson for Agriculture, Food and Water Development, Levi Ngoma, says the FRA has the mandate to secure national food reserves and to be a buyer of the last resort. But that with the announced non-economic prices, that mandate remains a pipe dream and unattainable. Mr. Ngoma has told a media briefing that this is because most farmers are opting now to sell their maize to private buyers who are buying a 50 kg bag of maize between 150 kwacha and 200 kwacha on cash basis. He says the price being offered by FRA has led to most vulnerable and desperate farmers sacrificing food security for quick cash. Mr. Ngoma fears if this price is not changed, it will leave the small-scale farmers more vulnerable to manipulation by the private buyers. And he has since called on government to quickly consider the price the FRA is offering for the sake of farmers whose lives entirely depend on their crops in the midst of harsh economic conditions.
This price we're talking about of 110, for any reasonable government, should have been there last year. Not under this season. So we can't applaud President Lungu. If anything, what he said whilst he was on the copper belt, he said that the farming community, the farmers, were going to receive a decent price for their produce. The question that begs for an answer is that why has there been so huge an outcry from the farmer if this is a decent price? Farmers are crying out there because the price announced by the FRA is not decent. Far from it. The National Farmers Union, the Small-Scale Farmers Association of Zambia, the peasant farmers themselves have complained about this price. As though that is not enough, as we have indicated already, the private sector is buying at between 150 to 200 kwacha per 50 kilogram bag of maize. So unless you don't think properly, will you be in a position to start applauding what President Lungu and the PF have done? If anything, the PF government doesn't mean well as far as agriculture is concerned. We are seeing the agriculture fortunes being reversed. Whatever gain would have been there in the agriculture sector under the PF is nothing to talk about.
The Felix Mutati-led MMD faction has implored stakeholders not to rubbish all the resolutions from the National Dialogue Forum. Addressing a media briefing in Lusaka, faction National Secretary Rafael Nakachinda says there are certain resolutions that are good and require consensus. Mr. Nakachinda says rubbishing all the resolutions will make the country miss an opportunity to make the necessary amendments to various clauses in the Republican Constitution. He points out that certain resolutions, such as the reintroduction of the Deputy Minister position and members of Parliament staying in office for 5 years, can be revisited. And Mr. Nakachinda noted the need for government to consult with different stakeholders, both abroad and within the country, in resolving the various economic challenges facing the country.
I must state here that deliberately, out of the so many resolutions that were made in the NDF, people have chosen two that they are trotting around the country to try and discredit the entire, dialogue forum. And those two, even when they don't have, merited arguments, it's just that those two resolutions are easier to use to incite the citizens because of the economic situation that we are facing as a country. We think that all of us as citizens must be careful around those who play to the garden. I think it's important, though, that we whip each other to see objectively things that will benefit the country. We all agree that there is need for constitutional reforms, there is need for institutional reforms, there is need to sanitize our politics by way of dealing with issues of the Public Order Act. There is need for us to make sure that the electoral system we have in Zambia is inclusive, to accommodate women, to accommodate the different disabled, to accommodate the youths. We can't have a parliament whose members only come via a very unfortunate, a process which sometimes only gives advantage to those who are powerful.
Meanwhile, Mr. Nakachinda says the alliance between the MMD and the Patriot Front will continue. Mr. Nakachinda has also disclosed that the party's National Executive Committee, during its meeting held last week, resolved to commence the holding of intra-party elections ahead of the 2020 National Convention.
But I must state that whilst we're in a working relationship with the Patriotic Front, there is always a need, just like in any relationship, to have constant engagement among those people in that relationship to regularly discuss matters that are, in this case, since it's a political relationship, that are in national interest, such as governance and what is prevailing in the country. But suffice to say that any relationship requires to be constantly reviewed, just as any other, like I said, whether it is at Homestead or wherever, you have to constantly review. And we are not afraid as MMD to sit with our colleagues in Patriotic Front and be able to relook at our relationship. Is it serving the interests of the Zambian people, or is it not serving the interests of the Zambian people? Those are questions that we constantly ask each other, and will continue to ask each other until the opportunity is given to the members of the party across the country to have a say on this relationship.
The ruling Patriotic Front says it is not worried that it might face the same fate the MMD faced when it lost power in 2011 despite winning most by-elections. PF Central Committee member Brian Mundubile says his party disapproves the analogy of using the MMD's downfall as an example of what awaits it in 2021. In an interview with QTV News, Mr. Mundubile, who is the PF chairperson for legal affairs and Northern Province Minister says those using this analogy are only wishful thinking. He has argued that there is no scientific formula to justify the prediction that the ruling party will lose the 2021 general elections based on what happened to the MMD in 2021.
No, that analogy has no basis. You know, it's possible that a political party can be winning by-elections, and in the last 1 month before the general elections, okay, their message fails to sell. So that particular election may have been won in the last month before the general election. Not necessarily that that's the way it will happen. That is wishful thinking. To sit back and say, no, even MMD was winning by-elections. So therefore, even if you win by-elections, you're still going to win. No, there's no basis. You know, there's no scientific formula that can justify that is the way things are.
Patriots for Economic Progress PEP President Sean Tembo says President Edgar Lungu should stop allegedly mocking citizens by stressing the importance of education when government actions are evidently contradictory. Mr. Tembo says government's treatment of university students, lecturers and allied workers does not correspond with the importance it claims it attaches to education. He has cited withdrawal of students' meals allowances at the Copperbelt University CBU and University of Zambia UNZA. Mr. Tembo has accused government of indefinitely closing CBU and channel the funds meant to run the university to by-elections.
As Patriots for Economic Progress, we are very dismayed with the statement that was recently issued by President Lungu during the attendance of an alumni event at Mukuba Secondary School in Kitwe, in which the president was basically extolling the importance of education in Zambia. We find his statement very contradictory because it is under President Lungu and his government that we have seen meal allowances being withdrawn from university students. It is under his government that we have seen university lecturers being reduced to beggars because of late payment of salaries. It is under his government that we have seen the continued closure of a Copperbelt University. Therefore, we believe that Mr. Lungu's statement is not consistent with his actions. And it is our belief that President Lungu's idea of education basically revolves around the receiving of honorary degrees, such as the one he recently received from the University of Zambia.
The Zambia National Students Union, ZANASU, has called for the intervention of President Edgar Lungu in reopening the Copperbelt University. ZANASU President Meshek Kakonde has further appealed to Higher Education Minister Nkanduluo to listen to the cries of the students and reopen the university. Meanwhile, some concerned members of the public feel the continued closure of the Copperbelt University is not only affecting the students but the country at large. We have more in this report.
Early in April this year, the Higher Education Minister, Professor Nkanduluo, announced the indefinite closure of the Copperbelt University following a riot by the students. It is now over 3 months and the university has not yet been opened, a situation that has sparked a lot of concern from various stakeholders. The continued closure of the Copperbelt University has continued to worry many stakeholders, many of whom are appealing to the Higher Education Minister to reopen the university with immediate effect. The Zambia National Students Union, ZANASU, is equally concerned.
There's no reason why the school should continue to be closed because, let's say, some of the people were punished for such reasons. And away from that, the major reason why we're calling for the opening of the Copperbelt University is the aspect to say, you know, we have international students at that university and also innocent students that have been affected with such a closure and self-sponsored students. So their time is being wasted if the school continues to be closed.
I spoke to some members of the public and this is how they feel concerning the continued closure of the university.
So it's really a shame for me because it's really taking so much time, you know. Some students have to graduate this year, you know, have to find jobs and so on. So as a student myself, I feel really bad. They really have to step up their game and open up the university as soon as possible.
I feel like it's not fair on their behalf because they're getting behind with the learning in their syllabus, and then I think they have to repeat the whole course over again, the whole year over again, because of the delay and the time.
First and foremost, government must have considered the parents of those students, also the economy.
And recently, the Copperbelt University Students' Union president and other students were expelled over the student unrest which occurred at the institution 3 months ago. The question many are asking is why the university still remains closed despite some students being expelled. For now, the appeal of many Zambians is that the university be reopened immediately. Martha Katambi, QTV News in Lusaka.
Chipata district has this year recorded a significant reduction in the production of groundnuts. Chipata district agriculture coordinator Dako Philemon Lungu says the production has dropped from 592,050 kg bags last year to 249,700 bags this year. Mr. Lungu has told QTV News that the reduction is due to poor rainfall recorded in the district during the 2018-2019 farming season.
Well, I think you know that Eastern Province is also well known for groundnuts production, and in terms of groundnuts production, again here we have recorded a reduction. I think, you know, groundnuts require a lot of rains, and the most contributing factor, I think, in this case are the rains. You know, we have not had very good rains in the last 2 seasons. Yes, this year we had better rains, but not very good. And groundnuts require a lot of rain. So we recorded quite a big reduction from 592,000 by 50 kilogram bags last year to 249,700 bags expected this year.
On that agri note, we've come to the end of the news, but before I take a run, here's a recap of stories in the headlines. Foot and mouth disease has spread to 3 new districts, forcing governments to ban the movement of livestock from the affected areas. Housing and Infrastructure Development Minister Ronald Chidotela will this Thursday know if his fate, whether or not he has a case to answer in his corruption case. And the National Biosafety Authority has granted 4 companies permits to import products that may contain genetically modified organisms, GMOs. That's the news. Bye-bye. Continue watching QTV.